So the first session today, we're going to talk about unleashing the power of Microsoft Teams with the Power Platform. Today, myself and Joel will be walking you through about an hour-long presentation. So we're going to start off with an overview of the Power Platform. If you haven't taken a look at it recently, there are some new products and maybe some changes in the product name, some changes in marketing that we'll cover. Then we have a bunch of demos lined up. So we'll show some back-to-work solutions. We'll show you how you can create some workflows in Teams, and we'll show you some Power Apps that can help with automation in Teams, so helping creating teams and channels. After that, we'll go through and we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the individual Power Platform products that integrate with Teams. So in this context, how are we thinking about Teams? So we're not thinking about it as just a collaboration tool. We're thinking about it as the center of our digital workplace. So we're thinking about Teams as the place where we go to get work done. So today within Teams, you're going to see us embedding or enabling line of business applications. Ron showed you an example of a modern intranet in Teams yesterday. We'll go through how you can use Power Virtual Agents as a chatbot. We'll see some embedded Power BI reports. So we'll start to see more than just collaboration occurring within Teams. So we're using Teams as a platform in this case. Before we start talking about the Power Platform, it helps to take a step back, I think, and think about the technical skills in a typical organization, and really where does the Power Platform fit in. So if we think about it in terms of technical complexity, you've seen a lot of people basically develop applications in Excel over the years, same thing in Access. We see SharePoint solutions that take a growing amount of technical skills to create. So, you know, Excel, Word, Office documents, that's sort of at the left side of the spectrum. And as we go into a little bit more the technical area, we have the traditional development area. So we have people writing code, JavaScript, HTML, C#. So where the Power Platform fits in is really sort of across all those different technical levels, if you will. So as we walk through today, you'll see examples of applications that you can build that everybody on this call will be able to spin up. And as we need to extend some of our Power Platform solutions, each product is extensible through the use of some professional development skills. In terms of the benefit for low-code application development, why are we talking about this, and why is this a topic of interest during the recent crisis? It's obviously a lot quicker and cheaper to write Power Platform applications. The applications, you'll see the Power Platform is set up to quickly build minimum viable product, so quickly build applications that solve business needs. And typically the people who are building the applications are sort of close to the business requirements, so they're not a professional developer who needs to work with a business analyst to interview somebody for the business requirements. In many scenarios, the person who would typically provide the business scenario can go a long way in actually creating the solution. And there is an interesting note here on the bottom of the slide that Gartner does expect this area to grow, the low-code area to grow. By 2024, they're estimating that 65% of all corporate app dev will be done in the Power Platform or competing solutions. In terms of typical returns, the studies show an ROI of 188% over 3 years. When all said and done, they're measuring a 74% reduction in application development costs, and when adopted, the estimation is that you're saving 3.2 hours in terms of the line of business employee productivity. So this is a study that we'll include in this document from a Forrester Consulting report. So the Power Platform has grown in recent years, and it continues to grow seemingly daily. So when we talk about the Power Platform, what products are we talking about? We're talking about Power BI, a business analytics tool, Power Apps, the low-code application development tool, Power Automate, this used to be called Flow. This is for process automation. And Power Virtual Agents is a low-code tool that we use to create bots. Also, there's a conversation here about data connectors. So there's built-in support right now for over 325 different data connectors. So a data connector is a tool that allows us to bring in data from a third-party solution into the Power Platform. So when you want to integrate with many of your software as a service, many of the other clouds in your organization, many of the popular vendors, chances are that there's already a data connector that's been created, and you won't have to do any development work to integrate with things like ServiceNow or Salesforce. There's pre-built connectors that you drag and drop into your solution. There's also a product that we won't cover today called Power Portals. This is useful as an extranet in many scenarios, or a public website. So this will enable us to share some of the data that we store in the Power Platform, to share some of our Power Virtual Agents, Power BI reports with users outside of our organization in many cases. There is an investment in AI tools. They're called AI Builder. We won't get too deep in that today, but we will talk through some examples. And when we talk about the Common Data Service, last week that was renamed to be DataFlex. So that is the part of the product where we store our data. So when we take a look at the platform as a whole, how are the different products related? How I sort of think about it is, we're moving and we're modernizing a lot of applications and processes using Power Apps. So let's say we have a paper process still. We're going to create a form in Power Apps to gather the data. Then our business logic is done in Power Automate. So those are things like our approval logic, our routing, all that stuff. So what are we doing in Power Apps? We're creating the data. Power Automate, we're applying our business logic. And then with all this data that we're gathering, how do we understand it? Well, we understand it via the use of Power BI. So we'll see some examples today where we're gathering data with Power Apps. We have workflow and Power Automate, and then we're going to visualize it in Power BI.
I heard a really good analogy recently talking about DataFlex and how DataFlex focuses on data structures from a relational perspective and kind of gives you that power. So people who are wondering, well, when do I use SharePoint or the new lists versus DataFlex? And I think that's a really good kind of example, is when you're looking for more complex data structures, especially kind of primary key and kind of relational data, DataFlex is absolutely the one of the right ways to go. And as it relates to the Power Platform, your ability to store the data where it comes from, even into those say third-party repositories, that makes sense as well, because you have so many connectors.
Thanks, Joel. So in an organization, who are these low-code developers who can create the Power Apps, Power Automate workflows? So oftentimes the users may be horizontal IT. They may be users who are already sort of creating their own solution themselves. Maybe they've gone out and they've purchased a software as a solution product, and they may be using it without your knowledge. Maybe they're working in Excel or Access now. So these are the people we're trying to enable to build the low-code solutions. So this will look different in every organization. And also in a typical Power Platform deployment, we're looking at enabling our traditional developers, people who are used to working in Office 365, full stack developers, can still find value and build solutions in the tool. So in terms of extensibility, so basically everybody, those builders, every developer can create solutions in Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. And then as we need to extend those tools in the organization, again, we have the ability to extend that through the use of some professional development tools. You see here some different components of Azure represented. Well, we're here today to talk about integration in Microsoft Teams. Here's some quick examples of the way that the Power Platform integrates with the different parts of Microsoft 365. So up here, you see a Power App embedded in a modern SharePoint site. Here we see a flow embedded in Excel. Here's an example of a Power App in Teams. We're going to go into detail on that today. Here we see Power Automate embedded in Outlook. And again, we have some examples of Outlook integration and then the Office 365 people card in a Power App. So really the Power Platform is being embedded throughout Microsoft 365, throughout all the products. So, in terms of Teams, how do the products complement each other? Well, Teams is where we're going to collaborate, right? So this is where we chat, this is where we go to meetings, this is where we do our video conferencing. We can embed Power BI in Teams to sort of seamlessly embed some of our business intelligence reports into Teams. We can embed our Power Apps and run our Power Apps from the context of Teams. So when we do so, when we embed Power BI and Power Apps in Teams to the typical end user, they may not even view it as a separate application per se. To them, it's part of the Teams experience, part of the Teams user interface. We'll also go through some examples today of process automation, of Power Automate integration in Microsoft Teams. So all of this can be done, of course, in the Teams context. So with that being said, I'm going to hop into a demo here. And I'm first going to pull up my mobile device here. And in this scenario, we're going to start from home, like many of us start a workday. Maybe we're rolling over in bed and we're looking at our phone. All right. So here, this is my iPhone, right? So we're running a mobile emulator. It looks a little, the resolution's a little off, but it looks better on my phone. So first, we're going to show an application here that has to do with the current crisis, and this is an application that's going to help the employee come back into the office. So you see here I have a list of several applications in my Teams app. So I'm going to go ahead and run this employee return to the workplace application. So the context of this application is I'm going to go into the office. I need to make sure my office is open. So in this scenario, and some of the scenarios we'll be talking about today, each office needs to go through like a 5-phase plan, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 in order to reopen. So right now I looked up my office and it says that, hey, my office is in a planning phase. Maybe it's not yet open yet. So again, just some example functionality to check in on my office status. And let's say I want to go in to the office, then I need a day pass. That was a requirement from my organization. So in the Power App here, we're going to go ahead and try to get a day pass to go visit my facility in Los Angeles. So when I do so, I need to go ahead and start a health survey. And here, my company's checking in on my health and well-being, and we have some policies listed here. So I'm going to go ahead and accept the policy. And now we're just seeing if I've been ill in the last 72 hours. And then this is some logic built into the application. So let's say I'm feeling great. Then we're all set, and I have a pass that I can use to check in the office. Maybe I show somebody. Maybe this is just a policy, I need to do it. But when I hit accept, again, that was recorded, and it is auditable in the back end. So we'll see some examples of a Power BI report shortly. And then we have this item here. Do you feel safe returning to work? You can select the button there, and then that will help our employer here get a feel for how our workforce is feeling. So again, this is just a quick example of a Power App here. Power Apps are built, for mobile first solutions, right? So it's pretty easy to create a mobile application in the Power Platform. So this is an example of such. So we're going to go into another application here on the mobile device. So we're going to go ahead and launch our crisis information application, staying on topic. So here we see an application again, a Power App loading from Teams. You'll see we have an icon here in the lower bar, and it has an application-specific logo. As an administrator, you can target in your organization which different audiences should receive which applications. So we don't necessarily need to deploy a Power App to our whole environment. We can deploy apps to subsets of users. So at this point, we're going to come out of the mobile device here, and we're going to go into our desktop view. So again, just like we saw that application on the mobile device, we can also interact with that application in the Teams client. So that application I showed you was responsive on the mobile device. So here we're going to show you an example of how it's rendering in the desktop. So again, this is another example Power App. So we're going to run through here and show you some different tabs. So we have a company news tab here. So this is pulling out information from a SharePoint list. So this is, more corporate communications here. In this example, we're bringing in some world news. So we're consuming some RSS feeds from a CDC website. And then we have other basic information in here, links, FAQ, helpful tips. We also have a function here to make a request. So we're going to go ahead and make a request. So we'll have a question here. Let's say, when does my office open? And we're going to go ahead and submit that request. So because we're working in Teams, where does that request go? How are my teammates notified? So if we go to Teams here, we have a crisis management team represented. So this would be a private team that only a couple people in the organization have access to. So when we made that request for support in the Power App, that came through as a post in a help request channel. So again, a lot of the work we're doing in Teams is trying to sort of cut down and eliminate email. So throughout some of our demos today, you'll see interaction and communication in the channels as opposed to sending an email message. So the whole team can see this request. So here we can reply to the team. I will handle this request. And then if I like, I can click a button here to chat directly with the person who submitted a request, or I can send them an email. And when I'm done, maybe I just reply to the team. So again, that's an example of a Power App. user interface, there was a Power Automate workflow that was triggered on the back end that pushed the request to the help request channel. So again, we're creating, yes?
Yeah, I was going to just jump in and just say, I hope that everybody who's on here kind of makes some connections between what we were talking yesterday. For those who were on yesterday, we were talking about this strategic teams as a platform. And now you're really seeing how the Power Platform extends this Teams platform, where it's like, when you think about things, I know there's a lot of people on here who come from the Cisco world, that this is absolutely totally different kind of platform where you can actually build applications in it. I love the extensibility. When you talk about the ability to have the tools you use every day, those productivity tools integrated in, but then as well the extensibility for the enterprise to be able to kind of take on tasks like this. And I hope that those who are on can kind of see the connection here, where Teams really truly is a platform. It's not just a chat app. It's not just a meeting app. It really kind of brings these worlds together. And I think this is a really great demo to be able to kind of see a couple of good examples of that. That's really cool, Eric.
Yep. So we, back to the slide we showed earlier. So there we saw the Power App, as the user interface, the Power Automate, providing the workflow that made the post. And now we're going to see Power BI basically helping us to visualize all the data that we collected. So we're going to go up to the general channel here. And our crisis management team, our leadership team, if you will, here, they're going to have a Power BI dashboard that's embedded and really easy to get through in the Teams interface. And you'll recall in the first app we showed where we checked in and we got basically a pass to come into the organization, and then we said, are we feeling happy, sad, whatnot, our sentiment analysis. Here we see that information being reported on in Power BI. So here we can get a quick view overall of, hey, how are all my employees feeling? Basically, who's coming in the office, what passes are being generated, what are, in a graph, where it looks like we're trending up, more people are starting to come in the office. So again, just a bird's eye view, but it really helps us to understand what's going on. And because we're in Power BI, we can drill down into whatever office or region or facility we'd like to in the report. So we have some other examples here. There's a facilities at a glance here. So this is an international organization. So we have a lot of different facilities. So this is basically letting us know. We talked earlier, there's basically a 5-phase plan in terms of reopening the office in this scenario. So phase 0 closed, phase 1 planning, phase 2 initial return, phase 3 more people are coming in, and phase 4 we're in the new normal. So just again, a bird's eye view via color coding, we can see basically the current state of all of our facilities. So where are we still closed? Where are we scaling up? Where are things sort of running as normal? And we also can see here we have sent out a checklist to each facility. So you need to do these things in these tasks in phase 0, these tasks in phase 1, these tasks in phase 2. So basically we can report on the different facilities' progress as they get ready to sort of reopen. So again, this is presenting some of that information. Information over 641 different facilities in a way that we can understand it. And again, we can pull in this scenario, some of the COVID information. This is coming in from the WHO, from some third-party data sources here. So we can review basically the COVID hotspots in relation to where our different facilities are. So as we zoom in here, we can see some of the case information. I think this is how fast it's spreading, the R estimate, if you will. So again, we're able to drill down and filter in here and just sort of understand, you know, some of the patterns in the spread of the disease here. So this was an example of sort of an executive dashboard, right? We're viewing all the information for an international company in one dashboard. We also have an example of a facility team here. So if we go over to the Cincinnati team here, we're going to look at a facility level dashboard. So here we're reporting on the same data that we were in that executive dashboard, but we're reporting just on the facility information. So here's, you know, how far they are in their tasks that they need to do to reopen. Here may be a report of the virus spread in their region, maybe some predefined filters in here. And then here's a report on the activity of that facility's employees. And again, we can see their sentiment. You know, are people coming in? You know, what's the trend there? How many people are using the mobile app, etc. So again, in the first example, that was an executive level all up dashboard, and here's an example of a facility dashboard. So we're going to sort of come out of the COVID conversation. I know we all feel a little tired talking about or hearing about it sometimes. So now we're going to go into a Power Automate scenario. So we're going to go ahead and I think we're all, or many of us are familiar with what was the SharePoint approval workflow. We're going to show you an approval workflow here that we can create in Teams. So to get us started, we're going to add a tab here. And this is something really anybody on the call could do if you have permissions. You can, you know, in your org, you can go to one of your teams and you can add a tab. And then we're going to pick Flow. You know, again, we talked about this has been rebranded as Power Automate. In some spots, it's still showing up as Flow, but they're both the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and add Flow to the tab here. And then right off the bat, we'll see that Microsoft is supporting us with different templates that we can use. So these are sort of pre-built, pre-configured workflows that are used as an example to us. So we're going to take advantage of some of those templates that have been provided by Microsoft or they've been provided by the community. So we're going to go ahead and create a flow from a template. So here we can see some of our initial templates here integrate with Teams, obviously, because we're in the context of Teams. So we can, in this example, alert the team when specific documents are uploaded, send a push notification to me on my mobile device when I mention in Teams. So as we go through, there's a large number of these types of templates built in. And as we see more, we'll start to see options to integrate with some of those third parties through the use of those connectors that we talked about earlier in the conversation. So here we see Salesforce represented, notify the team when a new lead is created in Salesforce. You'll see a lot of templates that have to do with ServiceNow in here. So in addition to those connectors that are currently provided, you know, there's over 325 of those, we can also create custom connectors for basically custom systems in your organization. So we're not necessarily limited to those 325 connectors that are provided. We can, you know, create custom ones, and if in your organization you have some enterprise web sources, or if your third-party solutions, they have a web-based API, we can create a custom connector that's basically wrapped around that web service or wrapped around that API, and we can expose that in Power Automate. So when we expose that, if we choose to, we can create templates such as this for the community to use. So we're going to go ahead and create an approval workflow here. So the one we're going to select is start approval for new documents and notify via Teams. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And as you do this in the bottom here, the flow is sort of going to run as you. So the first time you do this, you'll have to grant it permissions to connect to the different parts of Office 365 that the process is going to interact with. So in this scenario, we're going to interact with SharePoint, Flow, Teams, the user service, and Outlook. So we're going to send an email here. So we hit continue here, and we see here that Flow or Power Automate was created based off that template. So it has provided me an example, and it has pre-configured my team and my channel. So if I'd like to, I can think of this template as just a start. I can go ahead and customize this and add my own business logic, sort of transform this template into something else. In this scenario, we're going to use it as is, out of the box, if you will. So we just need to make a couple configurations, making sure we understand what library we're going to be monitored. So in Teams, when we talk about files, behind the scenes, we're actually storing the files in SharePoint. So you see here, this is an action that it says we're going to basically monitor that SharePoint library that the Files tab is using here for new files. So when a new file is created, we're going to start our workflow here. So I know that behind each Files tab here, the SharePoint document library is always called Documents. So I'm going to go ahead and select Documents. And then I just need to enter in the approver here. So I'm going to go ahead and select myself. Once I'm done, I can use the flow checker here to make sure there's no errors. So in this case, there is no errors. So I'm good to go ahead and save the workflow. So now we have a workflow set up against that Cincinnati team. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Files section here. And I'm going to upload a document. And this should, of course, trigger our workflow. And I'll just upload another one just to double check that that executes. All right, so as that file opens, so also in addition to being integrated into the tab here, we see we have another application available to us within Teams, and that is the Flow application. So as I run this, we can see that we can interact with a Flow bot if we'd like to. We can also see a list of the flows we have set up in the environment. So in this case, when we saved that flow, we saved a new start approval for new documents. So you see here, this was created 1 minute ago. This is also where I go to do my approvals. So as that Power Automate process runs, we see it's created a task for me as an approver to come in here and review that file. In addition to assigning me the task. It also has made a post here in the Teams channel that says that a new file has been added. Please review the file and approve it ASAP. So again, we're going to go into the Flow app here and approve the file. And then from the native interface here, we can approve, reject, reassign. So we have some basic approval functionality here, and we can also add a comment. In this scenario, we're going to go ahead and approve. And then we'll go back to our team. And then we'll see here that that file has been approved. So we've made a post into our channel that says, hey, I took care of it. You don't need to go look at this document anymore. So that was just an example of the template. If we wanted to change the message, have another behavior, send an email, maybe we want to add something to multiple channels, we can do so in that flow. So it's pretty easy to customize these templates. So that was, again, an example of a Power Automate workflow in Teams, and that's something that you can likely do today, in your organization, assuming you have the permissions. Now we're going to go back to the COVID scenario, and we're going to go through an example of a Power Virtual Agent. So on the left here, you'll see I have an additional icon here. It's called Crisis Bot. So when I click on this, we'll see that a chat bot has been brought up. So behind the scenes, we've previously configured a Power Virtual Agent. So we've done some lightweight work getting this up and running. So basically, we've clicked a couple buttons previously prior to the demo, and we have crawled a FAQ list on the CDC site. So the bot has basically compiled a list of topics from that site, and now we're going to ask it some questions, right? So this is an FAQ scenario. And of course, the bot supports additional scenarios, and we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get back on the deck. So, on the news, I saw some news story, and I'm nervous about, petting dogs because I might get sick from petting my dogs or whatever. So I'm going to ask the bot, so can I pet something sort of egg? So the bot wasn't able to understand exactly what I meant, but it was able to identify 3 different topics here that it consumed from that CDC website. And the topics are: should I be concerned about pets or other animals? Should I avoid contact with pets or animals? What precautions should be taken for animals that have recently been imported? So I think, what question is closest to the one I was trying to ask? So I think it's the first one. Should I be concerned about pets or animals? So I'm going to go ahead and,
for the record, yep. Eric, I mean, you really haven't done a lot of training on this bot or on the information it's consumed, right? This is pretty much just, hook up and go for the most part, right?
Yep. So this is, it just crawled it, right? And we maybe deleted a couple topics we didn't want. And then what we're seeing here is the bot has some functionality here to sort of train itself. So over time, it will learn, can I pet my dogs? It understands that I selected this answer. So it's using some machine learning to sort of train itself.
Right.
And then here we have a feedback loop with the bot. So we're going to say, I read the response, and yes, this answered my question. And then it's going to go ahead and ask me to rate my experience. So again, the bot is sort of learning from this. And we don't necessarily want to represent this as something that works perfectly, the first time. These are things we need to work at. There's a lot of analytics that we'll mention briefly in the back end that we need to review and refine. but it does also train itself in addition to some of the work we need to do on the back end. So again, that was an example of a Power Virtual Agent. And I think for our final demonstration here, we're going to show you one last example. And this is an example of more of an IT-focused Power App. So this application is going to support our team's governance needs. So here, yep.
Quick question for you.
Mhm.
Those who are looking to take advantage of virtual agents, if they're trying to decide between virtual agents or the FAQ bot or even leveraging the bot SDK, is there any guidance on when you would choose one over another?
I would start now with the Power Virtual Agent as opposed to the FAQ bot. I think it's we talk about who is the builder. So the Power Virtual Agent is there for the low code, no code type of resource. And honestly, as you get into the user interface, it's very simple. This product, especially in terms of Power Platform, it's pretty simple to build out a conversation. And then once we build out the conversation in Power Virtual Agent, if we have features it can't do, if we want to bring in a tile, if we want to bring in a systems integration, or if our Azure team has done existing work with an Azure bot framework skill, we can integrate those skills into the Power Virtual Agent. So I don't think it's a either or type of conversation. So the question is a little bit, do we need to extend the Power Virtual Agent with professional development skills with some of those, the bot skills that our pro dev team has developed? So again, many of the products in the Power Platform can be extended by a professional developer who's doing some work in Azure. All right, so back to the Teams administration sample app. So here we're just going to run through some brief examples. So here you'll see I have a marketing site we laid out. So we just have a couple channels. But let's say that this site was going to be our standard team site. So we have it laid out how we want. We have the tabs set up how we want. If we have some Power Apps in there or custom applications, we've had them added to the tabs. So when we get a new request for a site, from an end user or from a teammate, how can we support that? In this scenario, we're showing an example of a Power App that's there to gather some of the data. So here we're just going to show you mechanically that we can go ahead and clone a team. So again, I'm going to try to clone that marketing team here. And you see here in the back end, there's a Power Automate workflow that's going to go through, and it's going to clone the apps, the tabs, the settings, the channels, and the member permissions. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a team here, and then my Power Automate workflow is running in the background. So this is a simple form, but you can envision this as a request a team type of form. Maybe that's exposed to your end users. Maybe it's just something your IT team uses. But we ran that workflow in the background here, and you'll see, actually I don't even need to refresh the screen here. You'll see the clone team was created at the bottom here. So, if we have any, we need to do any logging, or if we have any company-specific procedures we need to do when we're creating a new team, we can go ahead and do that in the Power Automate workflow. Well, great. Well, that concludes sort of the demo portion. So we'll hop back into the slide deck now. So, we saw an example there of how you can create a Power Automate workflow pretty simply and quickly. Within the context of Teams, as time goes on, you'll be able to create Power Apps in the Teams context and even work with DataFlex, all without leaving the Teams experience. So, if we deploy the Power Platform and evangelize it successfully, we're going to have a lot of applications likely being created relatively rapidly. So part of the conversation with the Power Platform is how do we governance? How do we apply governance? How do we monitor what's going on in our environment? So this isn't necessarily a conversation about that, but just wanted to call out here that how we create a center of excellence and how we not only facilitate the spread and the use of the Power Platform in an organization, but how do we govern it? How do we monitor it? These are all capabilities of the platform. So if you'd like some more information, yep.
I was just going to dive in here. I think a lot of organizations, when they start looking at Power Platform, they imagine every user being able to build these flows in Power Automate and building chatbots and so on. But the reality is definitely not everybody doing it. It's usually starts from these maker type people, the people who are trying to kind of tinker and figure things out and trying to really make their lives better. And your ability to manage environments and to kind of create a culture around the creation of these applications, it really helps IT scale. And I think a lot of organizations, when they think governance, they think, oh, we need to like block everybody. And really, this is more about how do we actually create an environment or even set of environments for kind of, it's not full-on traditional IT with dev, test, staging, production, but you can actually create development environments for your business units and manage these environments and be able to create a culture of being able to build solutions and working with the business as they create them themselves.
That's right, Joel. It really comes down to enablement, to your point, and you have to be well governed, or at least, in a comfortable state to do that. But that shouldn't scare you away from, getting some quick wins and even some more monumental ones in order to drive this culture of enablement. Because without that, you're really not going to reap the benefits and the return on investment you're really looking for out of the platform.
Great. So at this point, we'll just have a conversation about Power Apps, Power Automate, and the Power Virtual Agent, sort of a recap of some of the items we saw today. So that being said, we'll hop into Power Apps. So again, Power Apps, low-code approach to building applications. We're seeing its integration throughout Office 365. We have a large number of connectors available to us. There is investment in AI functionality, which we haven't had time to go into today. We should feel comfortable that we can set up governance processes and procedures that will support our community in the creation of the Power Apps. And if there is something that the application cannot do out of the box, we're increasingly comfortable that we can extend the platform. I'm not going to say make it do anything, but if you have scenarios where we can do custom development, create a custom widget in a Canvas app or a model app, which we'll talk about in the next slide, it really opens a lot of things up to us, and we can really do quite a few things inside of that canvas. So one thing you might hear mentioned is there's actually two types of Power Apps primarily. There's a Canvas app. So this is a user interface that basically you can customize fully. So it's a white screen, you drag and drop controls on it. You can basically lay out the user interface however you like. And we also have a model-driven app, which is more of a templated application. And if you're familiar with Dynamics, some of the concepts in the model-driven apps have evolved in Dynamics, so that if you're thinking of CRM, that is correct. So what we've seen is sort of parts or portions of the Dynamic solutions. Some of their technologies have come into the Power Platform and have been modernized, if you will, and rebranded. So in terms of recent investments in the Power Platform, the platform is moving very quickly. There's new tools basically for us to hone performance of the application. There is an automated test framework, so we can basically create and run test scripts automatically against the Power Apps UI. So this is useful. So we don't have to do a lot of manual regression tests every time we change a button. So I think that's a sign of maturity in the platform personally. It is pretty simple here to get your application running in Teams. It's very small here, but you click a button, add the Teams, and then it walks you through basically a three-step process here to get your application running in Teams, similar to what I showed in the beginning of the demo. That model-driven experience here, it's all Power Apps branded. That's relatively new. In terms of integration with the common data service, now DataFlex, that has continued to grow. You can create views in the common data service, similar to how you're able to do in a SharePoint list. So really, we see a lot of great work there and a lot of great capability. Working with data in Power Apps and in the common data service. And they've added increased support for images and files. So if you'd like, you can store files and images directly in the common data service. So you can basically use the common data service to store all of your information at this point. One thing to briefly note, some of the items we shared today, have assumed licensing. As with many of the Microsoft products, some of the licensing rules are complex and may or may not apply to your organization. So just as we're going through this journey, as we're learning more about the Power Platform, we should just become familiar with our corporation's licensing and any licensing requirements that we may have to use some of the different components. Going back to Power Automate again, that is our workflow tooling. Again, we can extend Power Automate via professional development. We can create custom connectors. We can interact with new or existing web services. And we should mention that Power Apps and Power Automate in particular have been built from the ground up with security and compliance considerations in mind. So if you're in an organization where you have various compliance requirements, chances are that the platform will meet those requirements. So again, some examples of the use of Power Automate, common examples. We can notify users on their mobile device. We can do push notifications in Teams, which typically people are very interested in. We're copying files, we're collecting data, we're automating approvals. So when we have those types of scenarios within our organization and we're a Power Platform user, we should think through a Power Platform solution first. In terms of approval scenarios, document reviews, contract sign-off, time-off requests, hiring decision, office supply. So all these sort of common scenarios, when we see these things, we should go, hey, is this a Power App with a Power Automate workflow? In terms of some of the new capability, again, there's been heavy investments in AI Builder. Recently, for instance, there are RPA tools, which we're starting to use more and more that extend the use of Power Automate. We can also create workflows that would say, hey, scan a contract, extract different entity values. So we could extract like the client name, the address, the phone number, the account number from documents, assuming those documents are in a standard format. And we can work with that information in the context of Power Automate. And then the RPA scenario, if we need to integrate with any old like legacy applications, we can then push information into those legacy applications through the use of the RPA tools.
And I would add, well, there's some of the work that's going on with Project Cortex. Essentially allows the kind of grouping, filtering, sorting, summarization. A lot of the kind of cognitive services are really being added in here, as well as with all that additional metadata and the managed metadata kind of service that's being modernized. There's a lot in relation to business automation that can happen with the Power Platform that can be driven based on what's happening from the AI side. And we'll see a lot more of that.
All right. And to close us out here, just a quick recap of the Power Virtual Agents. So again, I'm excited about this technology. So we have an easy canvas here to basically design our bots' conversations. And this is something that doesn't necessarily take a professional developer to do. But if we'd like to, we can extend it with some professional development skills. So it's pretty straightforward to create a bot. So here you see the canvas where we drag and drop, questions and answers, and then based on the answer, we route, to a different part of the conversation. So it's very similar to Power Automate itself in terms of how we build out a conversation. And when we are in the conversation, one of the neat things we can do is we can execute a Power Automate workflow under the context of our current user. So that really enables us to do a lot of powerful things. For instance, if the user is asking if an item is in inventory in a certain warehouse, we can understand what item they're talking about, what warehouse they'd like to check, and then we can execute a Power Automate workflow to go ahead and return that inventory information to the user in chat. So the ability for us to execute those Power Automate workflows and the ability for us to build those connectors that connect to all those various third-party data sources is very powerful. And in a low-code approach, we can really cover a lot of use cases there. And then if we find a use case, again, we can't cover, we can augment that through the use of some professional development. So today you saw the Power Virtual Agent in Teams. It does support many other channels. So that same bot we're creating, the same virtual agent we're creating, we can deploy that in a public website. We can have a mobile app specific to it. We can access it through Facebook, Slack, Twilio, Kik, all those tools your kids are using. Yep. And again, we talked a little bit about analytics. So there are a growing set of analytics tools here that help us understand how our bot is doing in the field. So we have engagement, type of information, resolution rate. If somebody just closes the bot because they get frustrated, we can see the abandonment rate. If they're swearing at the bot, for instance, we have some reports in here where that would negatively impact the customer satisfaction report. So again, part of making the bot better is monitoring these analytics. And a key item here that really any virtual agent solution needs to do at this point is it needs the ability to escalate and hand over to a human agent. So that is a concept within the Power Virtual Agent as well. So we do have support to hand off the conversation to a person, whether that person be a support person who's working in Dynamics or maybe another sort of support solution. If the bot can no longer help them, then we can transfer to a live person. Great. Well, again, the team has another presentation about how we build a Power Platform Center of Excellence, where we talk more about governance processes and procedures and how to sort of ramp up on the Power Platform within your organization. So if you'd like to learn more, we'd be happy to review that with you as well. And in terms of where you can get started, sort of evangelizing or learning more about the Power Platform in your organization, we can approach a number of different ways. Building out an app in a day is one way. We found a lot of success in a 3-day workshops where in the first day we do education sessions, which are a bit more detailed than this, with some hands-on labs. In the second day, we create a proof of concept with you, hands-on, and then the third day we do some implementation planning. Often there's a scenario in your or a request in your organization, and after seeing this presentation, you may say, "Hey, that'd be a great candidate as a Power Platform application." Maybe that's the first one used to get going and to learn more about the technology. And often this gets started through an app modernization process. Maybe it's a SharePoint migration where we're modernizing InfoPass forms and SharePoint Designer workflows. Maybe we have a lot of Access databases that we have to get rid of. Maybe it's a legacy custom app. But oftentimes an app modernization scenario is the driver for increasing the use of the Power Platform. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I hope it was an educational session. Does anyone have any questions we'd like to review?
Yeah, Eric, when it comes to the Power Platform and kind of just getting up to speed, where's a great place to start?
If you have access to it, actually a great place to start is actually in the Power Apps user interface. So if you go ahead and go into the tool, you'll see that there are some tutorials that have been built right in to the platform.
Exactly. And so another thing, as you're exploring that, we did enter a poll just asking about everyone's Power Platform journey. It's integrated into the chat. If you have any issues with it, there's also a link below that you should be able to follow directly to Microsoft Forms. For some reason, Forms is not liking me today, so I put it in both the chat as a link and also integrated into the chat just in case. But go ahead with the learning stuff. I think this is very important for starting your journey.
I wanted to say that I attempted to do the vote and it says unable to reach the app. So just letting you know.
Exactly. I'm getting a few responses. They're probably following a direct link. Yeah. So I put both options in just in case people had issues.
Okay.
But Eric, so this is the getting started page?
Yep. So in your global navigation here, in your environment, you may see the Power Apps link. So if you go ahead and you click on that, you'll be brought to the home screen. You'll note that there is an entry over here called Learn. And from here, there is some training available to you. So there's some guided learning and some courses that you can review. It's a good place to start gathering some more information.
So I got one more for you, Eric. I think that sometimes the Power Platform gets kind of pigeonholed for the no-code developer or the no-code. And yet I do see there's a lot of developers who seem to be getting behind this as well. Can you kind of talk about developer scenarios versus the kind of low-code, no-code? Like where, say, dividing up a project or that kind of thing?
Yep. So, we've sort of been breaking up resources, or this is sort of how we think about it. So we have people with a functional education of the Power Platform. So these would be like our business managers, or our people in sales or executive level. So that there's that level of knowledge, basically being able to understand what the products are, what their value is, and being able to say, hey, this business problem in my environment can be solved by the Power Platform. Then we have the builders, who are those quote unquote citizen developers who may not be professional developers, and they can learn to build out many of these tools themselves. Then we do have the professional developer audience. So the professional developer, in this case, they need to learn both the functional and the low-code tools. Where it gets really sort of interesting, you can get under the hood here. You can develop custom components, custom widgets with custom code, custom connectors. There is, in terms of enabling the community, there is likely to be a data extraction transformation, so some cleaning up and consolidation of the data. So the professional developers and the historically the full stack developers, they still have a place in this, and a lot of people find creating a Power App to be pretty empowering. You can knock out a lot of stuff pretty quick with a little bit of training. So our team has enjoyed working with it, and we have many impassioned team members.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that Power Platform, it seems like there's some really advanced, cool stuff that I've seen people build as well, where they'll end up building components that then other people can even use in their apps, especially things like connections.
Well, that will conclude the session. Again, thanks so much for your time today.